Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Kollectiv Knowledge. I am your host, Shane Barrett. You can find me on Twitter at FFShaneB, and make sure you follow the collective, FF_collective. Now, that's enough about me, because tonight it is all about our guest, and we've got our first IDP guest on, and I'm excited. So joining me tonight is Gary VanDyke at the IDP Tipster on Twitter. He is the senior FF IDP analyst for Gridiron Ratings, an FF or a fantasy football advice author, IDP innovator, NFL fantasy football cast, and getting defensives analyst. So, with that being said, Gary, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing really well, man. Thanks. I appreciate you having me on. Um, just excited to get here, Shane.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you and I were chatting just a minute before pre-show, but my whole goal with this series is to get to know people in the fantasy football industry. And I've really come to love and kind of be an advocate for IDP. So I had to have some IDP guests on here. And that meant none other than starting with you. So I really appreciate you coming on with me as well.
Thank you.
Because you've answered my own IDP questions over the past
Yep.
year or so. So
Yep.
really appreciate that.
No problem.
With that being said, let's start it off with the same question we start every episode of Kollectiv Knowledge with. When was your first fantasy football league, Gary?
I really had to think back, and I believe about 98 or so
Okay.
for the first couple of years. Just ESPN, basic standard offense for a couple of years,
Nice.
like 5 or 6 leagues. I didn't really get into it until early 2000s. And that's when I discovered IDP and did more. Everything before then was redrafts. Didn't really discover any dynasties until the early 2000s, and then went from there.
Nice. Is that
Yep.
league, that first league from ESPN, still going?
Oh no, it was redrafts.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I didn't even know what dynasty was. I found out what dynasty was and started getting more information. I never was in on social media back then like this. Nothing like that. So if I didn't see it on TV or read about it, I really didn't pay attention to it. I didn't do a lot of dynasty reading, but once
gotcha.
I got invited by somebody that I was playing in a league with, got invited to a dynasty, I was like, well, I got to check this out. Then I discovered what forums were, and all
Mhm.
that. So went from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what is your longest existing league right now?
Well, right now, none,
None.
zero, none, zero. I have only did redrafts for the last 2 years. This is no lie.
Okay.
I just simply have not had the dedication or time that I wanted to put. I've been doing other things. I've been trying to become a go-to IDP guy out here. Done a lot of things, so I've stuck to just redrafts for a couple years.
Okay.
But I do have a favorite dynasty league that I played that just ended in 2018. It was his 10th
Okay.
year, and it's like it's one of those leagues that it just sits up on that pedestal on the top. It
Mhm.
was a 32 team league, cap
Oh,
full
wow.
IDP, yeah, cap salary, contracts, all of it. I mean, we had 2, 3, 4, 5 year contracts, had to deal with all of that. So that was
Ooh.
really what got me, because we had a full complement. We had 22 starters or something. No,
Mhm.
20 starters, something crazy like that. It was really
Yeah.
deep. And but we still had the rosters like short enough that you could still find people on waiver wire. They were
Yeah.
deep. They were deep, but there was still enough that just by having small, making you work the waiver wire. It was really it's what got me on IDP, because I was just as good as everybody else on offense. So the only way that I could figure out to beat these guys was learn about this IDP. You know what I mean? I had
Yeah,
played
absolutely.
IDP prior to that, but going into there, that was when it was like, hey, whoa, this is a whole nother level. It's time
Mhm.
to really learn the IDP to get out ahead. And my first instinct was using it as a trade tool,
Yeah,
because I would trade away the big guys' names and replace them with guys,
that
that
nobody's heard of but are still producing.
right
Love
there
it.
came from the IDP tipster years later. It's
I
just
love
it's
it.
how it got me in here. Yep, I love it too.
Awesome. So you said that through the years you found all the different league settings, and that's how you found IDP. If you've got one, like you can take on one league, one more league, what are your favorite or your perfect league settings that you'll be like, yep, I'm in?
Um, it would probably almost take at the moment, at this very moment, it would probably almost be like it'd have to be something really grand scale, something like what I just mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really did. I started the IDP incentive this year. It's offense and defense. But it's something. It's on MFL, and it's something that I'm using. Everybody's got to watch the stats and watch everything. And I love MFL, so this is where I'm paying attention to what's going on each week. This is, my main one. It's going to be. It's a keeper league.
Okay.
So yeah, I try to make it interesting, for everybody, not necessarily dynasty,
Yeah.
but still, yeah, just keep it rolling. But it would take something like a 32 team league. It would take the cap contract. It was a balanced scoring format when I hadn't seen it in IDP before.
Okay.
Everybody, I never really started. And what was funny is I went from never commissioning any leagues at all, just always joining, to all of a sudden I co-commissioned that thing within a couple of months of being part of the league. I was always on, on the chat and stuff. So the guy asked me, and got to be good friends of his with him online, But yeah, it had like a balanced format, and he brought up when he made it, he brought up the IDP enough that it mattered almost as much as the offense. Where before the leagues that I'd played in, offense had always been, the major one. You're getting 1.2 points a sack, or 1 point a solo, just barely. Plus you're only playing like 3 or 4 total IDP if you're lucky. A lot of them started out. I remember playing 2. I remember just playing 2. And they could be flexes, It was like, once I discovered the whole package of IDP, I just fell in love with it. And I just kept rolling, just playing, started trying to figure out my edge. And this says my bio, which you kindly read, said innovator. And I've come up with a few formulas that I can look at certain stats, put them together. I think that's a lost. I think that is a lost tool out here. I think people have all these stats.
Yeah.
But on IDP, I'm talking purely IDP, there's these stats that if you look at them and you put them together in a combination, it projects on a weekly basis. Okay. And I've managed to whip myself up a 5-step formula. It's been my bread and butter on my start sit charts for the last 5 years, and it has carried me to here talking with you.
I love it.
Yep.
We'll have to dive in on that another time.
All right. Yeah, I'm just rattling on. You'll have to stop me here and there. I get going, especially if you're talking about this, man. I'm a very happy camper.
That's the whole point, is to make you happy and talk about you. So I'm perfectly fine with your rambling.
All right.
Next question for you, Gary. What is your favorite position in football?
Actually, running back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I ran. I was a running back in high school. So
cool.
Blew out my knee my sophomore year. Back in 84 or 85 when that happened, they don't do them like they do them now. So
yeah.
Right.
It's not a 9-month recovery.
No, not at all. Nope. So, but yep, running back.
Very cool. All right. So when did you actually start making content for fantasy football?
My first article was the spring of 2017.
Okay.
I believe it might have been March or April, if I remember right. But yep, it was on Dynasty Fantasy Football Factory.
Nice.
So it was called targeting IDPs, and I can pretty well. One of them I'm not 100% sure about, but I'm pretty sure I had three players in there. I was basically it was a sleeper article,
Okay.
and I was suggesting Grady Jarrett, which worked out, and
Nice.
then AJ Klein, which he did okay. And then, if I remember right, Justin Simmons. Don't quote me on Klein and Simmons. I know they were in that area,
Okay.
but I wrote a couple of for them. So I actually tried to look it up. I don't have those docs anymore or anything. Tried to look it up, and it's paid content now, so it's still there, but
Oh,
you can't. So I'm like, oh, there ain't no way I've got those notes right.
yeah.
So I had to do a lot of hard thinking there.
Well, we appreciate that. So why'd you start? What made you start?
Guy at Dynasty Fantasy Football Factory. I had like 65 followers on Twitter at the time, and I only got on there occasionally. But I started making comments and talking and seeing some of the stuff out there about IDP, and I didn't necessarily agree with. So
Okay.
I kind of was one of those guys. I wasn't trolling, but I would challenge. I didn't realize what the community was. I just was this dude, and I was like, "You don't know what you're talking about," type stuff. When I
Yeah.
first started in this industry, I created a few arguments because of disagreement. So, anyways,
Right.
right,
It's social media. That's what we're here
right.
for.
Yeah, I feel terrible. I forget his last name, but his name was John. He was like a recruiter for him, and he just reached out to me after I was apparently talking to somebody, and he asked me if I'd ever wrote, and I was like, yeah, and high school, yeah, yeah. I've always been working factories and everything else, or driving deliveries,
Yeah.
so I thought about it and went with it, and
I
it
love it.
just stuck.
I love it.
Yeah, just said, yeah, I'll give it a try. Needed something to do. All
Yeah.
this free time I have to burn, right?
That was similar to why I started. I've just felt like I needed some type, like I just wanted some creative outlet.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what? I'll just start writing fantasy football. So I reached out to the guys at Fantasy Football Astronauts. I was like, hey, are you guys taking any writers? And they were like, yeah. So I sent them a piece.
Nice. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so next question, Gary, is what is your favorite thing about the fantasy football community?
Well, I'd have to say after my luxurious 5 years on the Twitter community, I would have to say the best part about the community is coming together when it really matters.
Yeah,
I mean, we do see
absolutely.
drama. The drama would be my second best thing, right?
Okay, yeah.
Right, right. But that whole family, that whole vibe,
Mhm.
it really, I mean, we see it all the time. There are a lot of different people out here. There's a lot of opinions, and it's just everybody's got their own thing. But when I see that drama, it just kind of, it used to be I was in that a little bit at the beginning.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, now I just like sit back and watch it. But
Yeah.
I like it's like the Scott Fish Bowls, things like this. I mean, the amount of money I was reading, the amount of money in Forbes or something that the fantasy football community puts into the economy, into
Mhm.
charities every year,
Well,
and
I
the
mean,
charities especially,
yeah, not to toot my own horn, but I mean, just as an example, with my charity tournament, Polly's Playoff,
right,
like
yep,
last year we raised $5,000 for the Alzheimer's Association.
right,
This
yep,
year we're coming up on that again. I know we've raised at least 3,000 already, and I just sent out the
yep,
invite so people
yep,
that haven't are sending in donations. So we're getting to that 5,000 number again, and if we can hit that and exceed, like cool. Like I've
right,
done something good, and I had a bunch of random people that I met through Twitter help me out, and some of those random people have become some of my best friends. So,
yep, yep,
um,
yep.
that's just for me a perfect example of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and every little bit counts.
Exactly.
I'm in an all IDP guys autism league right now. So
Yep.
yeah, and off the top, sure to donate the proceeds if I happen to slip up and win. Just
Yeah.
yeah, but I've been made a few contributions this year. So all in all, I'd have to say it's just the community coming together on the things that really count.
Absolutely. And I, as a benefactor of that, I've really appreciated it.
Mhm.
I've left this comment up on the chat because shout out to HillDog1013. You've been playing IDP longer than I've been alive.
I'm glad you read that because with my bifocals, because I am old, I was, it's way over there.
Yeah,
That's
no,
funny.
he said he's been playing IDP since 92.
Wow.
I was born in 95.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
all right. Gary, last fantasy football specific question, and it's actually not, but it's the last question before we hop into rapid fire. What are some hobbies that you have outside of fantasy football?
I haven't done anything really for 5 years other than this. Reading sports.
Reading works.
Yeah. Reading. Read.
Do you read primarily sports stuff, or do you read?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite author?
The guy that was correct.
Okay, fair enough. Are you
Right.
a baseball fan? We're going down a rabbit hole.
I played in high school. No, I mean not to the point that I watch games. Not really. No.
Okay. The reason I ask is I think it was Tom Pelissero wrote a book about the Cubs when they finally won the World Series.
Mhm.
Don't know if you're a Cubs fan, but if you care about baseball at all, it's a good read. I actually bring it up typically on interviews for jobs because it talks about how if you build the team with the right people, then you can go further than if you've got just a bunch of talented people with bad attitudes and whatnot. So
Yeah.
I really appreciated that book and I recommend it a lot. So check it
Cool.
out. It's called The Cubs Way.
All right.
All right. So that wraps up our fantasy football questions. And now we are hopping into rapid fire.
Say it again. Cubs.
The Cubs Way.
All right.
But I think it's Tom Pelissero.
I'm old. I never remember. I got to write it down, man.
Hey, a mentor of mine told me one time that the dullest pen is still sharper than the best memory.
Ah. Wow.
So,
Deep.
It is. All right. Are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Sure.
All right. Let's get it. Favorite NFL team?
Used to be the Chargers.
Okay. We'll dive into that in a minute. Favorite sport that's not football?
Probably NASCAR.
Okay. Favorite food?
Steak.
Yum. What kind?
Medium rare. Even just a good sort of sirloin will work.
Love it.
Yeah.
Favorite sports movie?
That's a tough one because it's either going to be Slapshot or The Longest Yard, but the Longest Yard original 74.
Yeah.
I had to make sure because I remember the Hanson brothers. I used to love that. I watched the reruns of it all through the 80s. All right, I'll stop. Rapid fire. Go ahead,
No,
man.
you're good.
That's all right.
My dad, sister, and I watched the one with Adam Sandler that I think was 2005.
Yeah.
And then my dad was like, if you guys like this one, then you'll probably like the original.
Yeah.
So we went out and bought it, and the three of us watched it when I think I was still in high school.
Yeah. Especially back in the 70s and 80s, that was that was Burt Reynolds too.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I love that he made a cameo in the one with Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
All right, favorite non-sports movie?
Probably, I hate to sound weird, Braveheart.
No, that's a good movie. It's classic.
Yeah. I'll always get told if I say, well, that's a girl's movie. Well, not really. I think they overlook the love story, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, favorite band?
AC/DC.
Love it. This will make you proud. My 3-year-old, she asks to listen to Hike, but what she's talking about is TNT when they're saying oi, oi, oi. Yeah. So
that's classic.
She loves that song.
Yeah, and that's that older AC/DC mainly, but yeah, I love them.
Favorite adult beverage?
Used to be whiskey, now it's Long Island.
Ooh, I had a Long Island tea on Friday, and it was delicious.
Yeah.
Favorite TV show?
Anything that's got football on it, it really
Okay.
doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
Love it.
Well,
All right. Last two. Favorite defensive player?
since I was a Chargers fan, and I'm going to have to stick with Junior Seau.
I love it.
Yeah,
Such a good player.
yep, good
R.I.P.
guy.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Last question. Favorite offensive player?
Let's stay with the Chargers. Chargers, LaDaine Tomlinson.
I love it. I was hoping you were going to go that route
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
said you were the Chargers fan. Okay. Last question. It's a follow-up question. Why are you no longer a Chargers fan?
I become a football fan probably like
Yeah.
82 or something. So
Okay.
that was Ohio State. Um, I think it was 83. Don't quote me. 83, 84. I started watching the Chargers because everybody around me was a Cincinnati. Where I'm in Ohio, was
Okay.
Cincinnati local teams, Cincinnati or Cleveland or
Yeah.
Pittsburgh or Colts or something. So I just kind of just attract. I think Dan Fouts. It was his last year there,
Okay.
and I was a fan of them all the way up until they moved. 20
Okay.
some years. I got a tattoo on me. I don't know what to do with. Um, I got stuff boxed away. I lived through the Ryan Leaf years. I lived through the Marty Schottenheimer years. I just got to that point where management, there was always issues with the stadium in 2000. It just everything about it when they moved. I just wiped my hands of it now, or washed my hands. I didn't jump on another. I don't want to say bandwagon. I'm too old for that. I've been in. I'm an NFL fan, so by then I was really writing or getting close to writing, or I can't remember when they went to LA. Yeah, it was just 3 years ago.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Something like that. But either way, they even got a stadium yet. I'm kidding. Anyway, so I just I just had enough. I was done with it. Just washed my hands. So I'm just an NFL fan now.
Awesome. I love it.
Yep.
I mean, now would be as good a time as ever though to get back on, because you got Herbie fully loaded, you got Derwin James, Joey Bosa. That team's pretty young and pretty good, and that'd be a good time to hop back on if you wanted to.
No, can't do it. Can't do it. They really burned some bridges, man.
I understand.
You're talking 83 to what was it, 2016, 17, whatever it was. I can't remember. So yeah, it was a long ride. I don't know. Could care less. Still got my favorite players, mainly Ohio State guys. So
I got you.
But
I got you.
yep.
All right, Gary. Well, that wraps up this episode of Kollectiv Knowledge. I know we both actually have obligations to go to
Yep.
next, so we'll wrap it up. Guys, make sure you follow at FF Kollectiv so you can continue to see Kollectiv Knowledge. Make sure that you follow Gary on Twitter at the IDP Tipster.
I will follow back.
Gary will follow back. He is a great guy and a great mentor in the IDP space, and he'll answer questions. I can vouch for that myself. And you can find his content again. He's the senior FFIDP analyst for Gridiron Ratings, fantasy football advice author, IDP innovator, NFL fantasy football cast, and Getting Defensive Analyst. Gary, before we go, is there anything else that you would like to plug or mention?
Catch us tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern on at Getting Defensive. We're going to be covering some IDP, ADP, and some camp news, stuff like that.
Awesome.
About it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching Kollectiv Knowledge. Cheers.
Bye.